Hi everyone, it's Will. Now, some of you might be watching this video and you have graduated from college or are soon to be college graduates, and you are nervous about your next steps and making this big jump to this new chapter of your career and the new chapter of your life. And I'm here to help you build that confidence and give you a little bit of insight from someone who is 3 years removed from my college experience so that you can help navigate this a little bit more smoothly. Now, before we move forward, quick note, if you are looking for a supportive community around career, relationships, and personal growth, you can check out the Grow and Thrive with Mentor Pete School community in the description below. And as someone who's 24 and has gone through this mentorship program, it has had a big impact on me, which ultimately led to me working with the organization today. Now, back to what we were discussing. So here are some of the differences that I've noticed in being removed from my college experience, which I think is pretty timely with where all of you might be at. First off, you might have grown accustomed to this feeling of spontaneity in college, where if you ran into someone, you could be playing basketball 30 minutes later or going to get food in the center of town, whatever it might be. And one of the big adjustments that I noticed after graduation is that I had to schedule a lot more time to see my friends. So I might not have all of that spontaneity, and that was a big shakeup from what I was used to. So you might need to find those times on the weekend to be able to check in and see if your friends are available, or on a Friday night or a Thursday night, whereas in the past you might not have to. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just an adjustment that you will have to make. Now, another thing that I've noticed is that time seems to move so much quicker when you enter postgrad. So a year feels so much shorter than it did when I was in school. And what I've learned, and through conversations with others who might be in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, is that a year becomes a smaller portion of your life. So a year at 15 years old is 1 out of 15, whereas a year at 22 or 23 or 24 years old is 1 out of 22. So even though it's the same length of time, it feels like it's quicker because it's a 1 out of a larger proportion of numbers. So that's been something that's been interesting for me as I reflect on why time seems to be going so much quicker as I'm removed from college, is that it's becoming a smaller portion of my life. So you might get to a place where you're realizing, wow, it's already been 6 months. It's already been a year since I graduated. It doesn't feel that way. Well, keep that in mind as you move forward. And that's really helped me to really assess how I'm using my time, where I'm spending my knowledge, and where I'm spending my relationships, investing in them. Where is all of that going? And I think that's something that's been incredibly helpful for me. Now, another thing that I think is unfortunate, but it's the obvious thing that's brought up when you're nearing college graduation is, do you have a job lined up? And that's a big thing. And I think as I reflect on it, I saw kids who had jobs lined up when it was October of their senior year of college. And then a year later, they've been in their job for 3 or 4 months and they already want to leave. But then you have other kids who did not have a job lined up after college. And they might have been working at a restaurant to pay the bills. Maybe they were caddying, doing things like that. And then 6 months later, maybe it's October or November, and now they find a job and they end up staying there for multiple years. So there's this perception of being ahead or behind, but all of a sudden, that person, you could say, that had their job lined up in October and now they left that job a year later, you could say that they're behind, and now the person that took a little bit longer but is in a job that they're happy with, now they're ahead. So I think what we need to do is separate ourselves from being ahead or behind. You are where you are. So again, I think being able to pay your bills after graduation, that was a big thing for me. And I think that is a big thing for a lot of people. But I think putting the pressure on yourself to feel as though you need to find that perfect job out of school or have that job isn't necessarily fair to you. So I think being able to take that time to reassess while being able to pay your bills is crucial. So be a little bit easier on yourself, because there really isn't no ahead or behind. It's just where you are at this point in time. Now, another thing that can be easy when you're out of school is to compare yourself to literally every other person. And I am not perfect at this. I still do this 3 years out of school. But what can be helpful is to start really focusing on comparing yourself to where you were yesterday, or a month ago, or 6 months ago, a year ago. as opposed to comparing yourself to other people. Because the reality is, that's comparing yourself to one person, yourself, as opposed to comparing yourself to an infinite amount of people. Because if you want to find a way to always feel behind, you can find that. And it's just by comparing yourself to every other person that you might know. Going on social media and scrolling and looking at the perceptions of what other people are doing and how they're experiencing life. Like, you can compare yourself to an infinite amount of people, but if you just focus on yourself, all of a sudden it becomes a lot less overwhelming. And this is just as much advice to me as it is for all of you, because I need to watch these recordings on my own and be able to remind myself of this too, because it's not something I'm perfect with. Now, another thing that you will begin to notice, and again, if you don't resonate with this, totally fine. Monotony. There will be days where you're going to notice that there's way more routine, there's a lot more monotony, and it might not be necessarily enjoyable. And I'm saying this as someone who has a fairly, not flexible, but my day-to-day changes a lot, but I still feel as though there's such a routine. There sometimes might be that feeling of boredom, because when you get out of school, you're so early in your career. And if you ever hear about the term of the compounding effect of your habits and in what you do in your life, it takes time to compound those efforts. And when you're just starting out, you're really just trying to build momentum. And again, those are moments that can feel monotonous. It feels boring. It feels like you're just going through the motions. And I think the thing that could wrap you around and, start comparing yourself is feeling, well, why am I bored all the time? I think sometimes with the way the world works today and what we see on social media, it can be easy to think that everything should always be exciting. But that is not how it has been for me. Sometimes it's slow and steady. Being able to show up consistently, even when you don't feel like it, is crucial, because it's not always going to be exciting. It's not always going to be glamorous. And I think that's something that going from college with all of the fun that college has to offer into the workforce, it's not to say that you're going to hate what you do and you're going to, dislike, your life and your routine. But from my experience, like, I'm doing something that I really enjoy, but I still feel that monotony at times. So just fall in love with that process and recognize that even if you don't see the results yet, like, over time, that monotony is going to turn into and compound into changes that you might not have ever anticipated. Trust me, it does work. Now, also, you're going to start to recognize, and hopefully you start to recognize, that sleep is crucial. You'll start to see it as an investment, because you begin, or the hope is that you begin to take it very seriously, because my day, it revolves around my sleep. Like, if I say to myself, oh, I'll sleep 5 hours tonight and then I'm going to work a full day tomorrow, then all I'm thinking about is, well, my work tomorrow is going to be way less effective if I get 5 hours of sleep as opposed to if I get 8 hours of sleep. So whereas in college, I felt that if I were in class, I could say, okay, I'll sleep 5 hours or 6 hours, I'll be totally fine. Now, with where I'm at in my career, and maybe you might have this experience as well, I start to look at it as, okay, sleep is an investment. So me getting 5 hours of sleep, it is going to make 2 or 3 of those hours that I'm working throughout that day ineffective. So what I really should be doing is focusing those 2 to 3 hours on getting more sleep. So that has become such an asset. I look at it as much more of an investment. And this might be, again, all these things that I'm bringing up with you today, these are all things that might be experienced on your end as well. Now, you also might start to see that there's a lot of opportunities in your life, not just professionally, that actually come from people who are outside of your immediate circle. And it's an interesting dynamic, but you see people who you kind of know who lead to major opportunities that are happening in your life. And again, it's not just professionally, it can be in other areas as well. So this just speaks to the importance of networking, building those connections out of the gate, because you never know who you're going to meet. And also, as we wrap up this video, I think it's important to recognize that it's okay to not know everything right now. It's okay to not know exactly where your career and how your career is going to unfold, because that's been the case for me too. I still don't know. And I remember, I had a family member who always talks about his caddying experience when he was younger and he was just out of school. He was 22 years old, and he asked someone who was a very successful guy, is it okay to not know what I want to do right now? And the guy said to him, like, I'm 50 years old and I still don't know what I want to do. And he's done well in his life. So I think it's important to really be easy on yourself at this time, to explore, to try things out. And obviously you need to meet your needs. But I think there's this notion of like, what are you going to do the rest of your life? And that everyone is supposed to have that clear-cut answer, as if you need to know before you actually experience life. So once I know this, then I'll experience life. Whereas I think the knowing comes through experiencing life. And that's what the process of your 20s is about. That's what the process of your 30s is about. And again, as that guy mentioned, for some people, it's a constant journey of reinvention, which I think is such a beautiful thing. So again, if you're someone who's graduating college and is, worried about those next steps, be completely patient with yourself. I know it's easier said than done. I know I need to be patient with myself as well, but we're all in it together. And again, if you are interested in being a part of a mentorship community with other young adults who are looking to grow personally and professionally, feel free to click the link in the description below or visit my About page, which shares a little bit more about the program. Thank you all so much, and I will see you all soon.